Welcome to the Games Institute podcast-ish.
Ish. The best that we can do considering the circumstances.
Yeah. This may or may not feel more normal to people listening, but if you're watching us, we are not in the same room. We are, in fact, in our respective houses just down the street from each other, actually.
A couple of blocks away. On the other sides of campus, respectively.
Yeah. The Games Institute is almost between
us.
us.
You're closer to it.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm a little bit sad, but I'm going to choose to be happy that we are doing this at all because it has been a little bit of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, has it been 7 months? Was the last one March when we did the interview with Max right before everything shut down?
Yeah, it must have been because
it wasn't April. I believe it was already March.
Yeah. Well, I think it would have been either the first week of March or the last week of February, because I remember some people from the Games Institute were already announcing that they were going to leave and not come back for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
On
iTunes, it's March 17th.
That we uploaded it, yeah.
Yeah. So
but March 17th was my last day in the office, because I remember thinking, oh, March 17th, I wonder if people are down on Ezra for St. Patrick's Day. And no, they weren't, which was a huge surprise, a good surprise.
A good surprise.
Yeah, that was the last day in the Games Institute, and now it's been March, April, June, July, August, September, October. Holy cow, we're coming up on
almost to the day, yeah.
Yeah. How have you been?
I've been very busy, considering that there's not many places to go, but that's okay. So I've been busy. I did my PhD comprehensive exams in June and July, passed those finally. Yay. And since then, it's been prepping stuff for classes, running said classes, prepping D&D campaigns for said classes. Those start this week. I'm really excited about that.
All online.
Yeah. And then parenting, trying to read stuff for my PhD, playing games, cooking.
Yeah.
We barbecued a couple times I guess technically last month. That was fun. Because September was the nicest month of the year. So we actually wanted to go outside and do stuff. So we actually went outside and did stuff.
Yeah, there was a week in September because the building turned our heating on.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, when you turn the heating on, that means there's no air conditioning. You can't turn the air conditioning back on.
Yeah.
So it was a week too soon. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be really hot this week too. So hopefully the fall just perpetuates and we have this nice time because, with all the craziness going on, we didn't really go out much. But now that it's nice and people are back in school and stuff, we have more space to ourselves out and about.
Nice.
And it's also nice here too because there's no undergrads. So we basically have the whole housing area to ourselves.
Yeah, you're talking about you live up on like a graduate student area.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely not the case where I am.
Is it packed in there?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's a little bit scary because undergraduate students are not consistently distancing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get some people who really are being careful and then a lot of folks who aren't. And I don't know. I'm not saying I blame them because it's really hard to, we're living through this for 8 months straight. And the reality of it is still it feels very abstract for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But it just means I'm a little bit nervous to go outside. So I almost have the opposite of you. Where I was feeling very comfortable over the summer, and now it's a little bit more tense. But I'm still trying to go out for walks. I try to go out for about an hour walk every day, which is super interesting because it takes me to different spots of the city. Like I just discovered on the weekend that there's a solar panel park.
Oh, no way.
We also found this statue. This is just off of Heggie Boulevard. The statue's made entirely of animals.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Heggie Boulevard is where?
It's research. It's where all the research buildings are.
On North Campus?
Would we call it North Campus? I guess so. Like up behind where Columbia Icefield is, if you follow that all the way down and through.
That's North Campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff over there. All the old BlackBerry buildings and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I've been living in this city for about 7 years, 8 years, 6 years. question mark years now, and I'm just discovering different parts because I'm walking the different routes near
Yeah,
my.
you're not just going in a straight line and then back home.
Yeah,
Which is what I do.
Yeah, but we've been pretty busy at the Games Institute as well. Things have been completely different. Like in the past, all of our energy would feel like it's coming in a termly cycle.
Right.
So we would get really excited about doing events and then trying to get people into the Institute and then out of the Institute. Onboarding and offboarding was a huge deal. It still is, but it's a very different thing right now, obviously, because you're not moving people into pods. So I don't know, like transition has kind of felt like it's one big long semester for us.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's felt here.
Mm-hmm.
But I can imagine with you guys and all the like back and forth that the university is throwing at you too, because talking with other people about even going in to pick up stuff research related or whatnot, there's been a lot of, okay, you're clear. Oh, just kidding. There's new things that are coming out. Everybody, hit the brakes. And now we're going to do some new things and all that other stuff.
Do you want to hear something really sad? A couple weeks ago, I was talking to Pam, who actually we're going to be having in as a guest in a few days. I was talking to Pam because she's running the Return to GI efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me approval to go back into the Games Institute 1 day a week. So it would just be me in there, nobody else. And I was so excited to have a different scenery and to have just like more space than my 500 square foot apartment, if it even hits 500 square feet. And then an hour later, the Office of Research, they updated their safety policies, and so I couldn't go in anymore. Yeah. So sad. It was a glimmer of hope for a second. But I think we should ask her about what's really going on, like get her to give us a, I guess, public facing update on what we can do, what we can expect. Yeah. I'm very much in the dark. I'm just like sitting in my computer doing my writing, and the rest of the team is trying to coordinate plexiglass and hand sanitizer and masks.
Yeah, well, I was in there. Well, I guess you were in there this morning to pick up the mic, right?
Actually, I went in last week to pick it up.
Okay. So I was in there last week too, and it doesn't feel like much has changed. You have the arrows on the ground, you have wipes and sanitizer and sprays every so often to take care of your pod and stuff like that. But I mean, it was nice being back in there. It felt cozy. I missed it because I could go in there, and as long as I was early enough and I could actually get work done before people showed up and wanted to chat.
Yeah. Moment of silence. Yeah. But I mean, the highlight of all of this is I have been able to do a lot of really cool writing, featuring a lot of really cool stories, because so much has changed, and just talking about how our members have handled it and how they've taken it up in their research has been fascinating. So I think a lot of those stories are probably going to be coming out within the next month or two. And I also was able to do an instant replay edition of all of the things that happened over the summer.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that was really exciting. We've tried to do instant replay a couple times now, but for a few reasons, it hasn't really hit the mark. But this time it really did. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that people really came together over the summer, even though we were distanced.
Right.
And I had just so much content to fill. Yeah.
So we'll see that online on the website?
On the website, yeah. And also, I mean, I might as well do a plug for the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've updated the website in a lot of different ways, trying to make sure that it really tells the story of the Games Institute instead of being like this boilerplate thing. Just standard traditional things that you would find in a research institute's website. So, for example, we have this story now about our research partnerships with industry people and governments and not-for-profits, where we actually explain what it means to the institute that we partner with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, instead of just being before we had a list of logos, but now we actually explain what the projects are like and what these partnerships enable us to do, and vice versa, what linking up with the Games Institute has allowed these companies to do.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, and then I also threw up there a virtual tour of the Games Institute because obviously nobody's going to get a physical tour for the time being. Yeah, so I had to close my eyes and go into my visual palace. What is it? There's a term, memory palace.
Yeah.
And
Sherlock.
walk myself. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about it from there's a show that we watched, Dispatches from Elsewhere, and he goes into his memory palace and he walks through places. So I did that with the Games Institute so that I could write it all into a tour. Yeah.
That stuff's fun.
Yeah, all on the website.
So when you're not working,
Mm-hmm.
what games have you been playing through all of this? Have you caught the Among Us craze, as you're such a big werewolf fan? As I was wanting to ask you about that.
No, I haven't, but for the first time, I'm interested. I just see all of the memes.
Yeah, there's a lot of memes.
Yeah,
But
I
did you
don't.
not know it was a werewolf thing?
No, I assumed it was. This is going to be really silly. I assumed it was that other game that's really popular, with the islands.
That's like all of them. Are
Animal
you talking?
Crossing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, that's the one.
I assumed it was like Animal Crossing, where instead of
But
it
you're in
being,
space.
yeah, you're in space and there's little aliens and you have to groom your ship. I don't know.
No, it's werewolf. So somebody or multiple people are imposters and they kill people, and then you guess at the end of a round who is the imposter. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
this
free on mobile, so you should get it.
yeah, this changes a lot of things for me because I was invited to play tonight. I was like, I don't
There you
want to
go.
play Animal Crossing.
You probably would like Animal Crossing.
I don't know. I think the challenge for me is I probably would like it too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I try to avoid things in my life that get me addicted. The I make exceptions obviously for werewolf and other things
Yeah.
because I have to be able to get a group of people in order to play.
Yeah, it's it's a healthy social outlet
Yeah, well, it
for
also
the
means
most
that I
part.
can't just play it constantly. I need other people to get on board.
That's why I don't get into Magic the Gathering, because I could buy all these cards and they would literally just sit there. So I let other people buy the cards and then I go and play at their house.
Clever.
It saves
And
all the money.
yeah, and I'll answer the rest of your question really quickly because it is a very quick answer. I have just been playing the games where you can play with people online. So I am incredible at Scribblio.
I don't know what that is.
It's scribble.io, but I call it Scribblio
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm cool.
So is it like a Pictionary kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it automatically puts one person in the drawing mode and everybody has to guess.
Okay, that's
So
fun.
it's an incredible balance of my skills because I have to draw and then I get to guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so good at those two specific things. So challenge to anybody listening, we should play and you can watch me just annihilate everybody. Um, so I'm really good at that. And we've also been playing code names. And then the third game is so Cloudfall Studios, which is our AC and a bunch of their co-developers,
Mm-hmm.
they created a virtual way to play Captain's Gambit
Oh,
using
awesome.
Tabletop Simulator. Yeah. So I was one of their playtesters for their Kickstarter, which is going to be shipped out, I think, actually now, maybe December.
Yeah, getting
Um,
close.
yeah, but it was so cool. I had to get a Steam account and everything.
Wow, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, I get Tabletop Simulator, and then they have this whole network on Discord of playtesters, and it's from it includes various people from each of the developers' respective lives.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
one of the developers, Mitchell Lowen, who's also now a Games Institute member, he went to school in DC. And then somebody else knew a lot of people from London, England. So we would play this game using Tabletop Simulator, Captain's Gambit, my favorite game. And you're talking to people from like London and DC all in one.
Mm-hmm. That's really
And,
fun.
I mean, other places in the world, but yeah. So that was really fun. That was a good highlight. But now that I have this deadline coming up in November, I haven't been playing
No,
anything.
all work.
Yeah. Okay, now you. What have you been playing?
Oh man, it seems like this year has just been like consistently playing games. So I finished Divinity Original Sin 2 after probably around 100 hours, which is disgusting. So it's a really large open world-ish RPG that I'm using for my dissertation research. I'm actually on my second playthrough of it already. I played a lot of that. I finished Celeste for Neil's undergrad course. That would be a game that you and you should play. It's very, very difficult, but it has a lot of wonderful meaning, and the artwork is very beautiful.
Which one of our guests was talking about Celeste? Was it Justin Carpenter?
Probably because it has like it's very indie, and it has a lot of underlying themes and messages about mental health and overcoming challenges and stuff like that.
Oh.
And the mechanics very much tie in with that, which is really good. So I played that. Let's see. I've been picking away at Pillars of Eternity, which is another RPG. Basically, I'm just playing a lot of RPGs for my dissertation and looking at character creation systems and stuff. The big one that's coming out tomorrow is Baldur's Gate 3, which is the digital version of the D&D 5th edition rules. So I'll be able to just play D&D forever now and not have to worry about getting people because I can just do it digitally, which is so much nicer than having to play online or blah blah. Because we did that one shot that you were invited to that you had to bail because of whatever reason. And I was playing it and I was like, online D&D is just not my favorite. It was also just really late. We went a lot longer than I had anticipated, so I was losing steam. But that stuff, and we've played. Oh, so my wife bought me the Scott Pilgrim card game for my birthday. I don't think I even told you this. And so it's a deck building game, but set in the world of Scott Pilgrim. And so you play as Scott or Knives or Ramona or Wallace or Kim. I think, right? That's 4 or 5.
I'm gonna chill.
And Steven.
I'm so excited.
And so you have your starter deck, and you have different resources or different currencies. So you have love or music or work or something. I think there's something else. And so you buy cards for your deck, and so your cards are double-sided. So you have a card that will say, like, when you play this card, if you have a drama card in your hand, you'll get extra bonuses. So that's how you buy cards. And then you have a combat phase where you're fighting either challenges or the Evil X, which is like the boss for the round. So remember when we played Legendary, the Marvel one?
Yeah.
So it's basically that, but in the Scott Pilgrim universe.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, I was thinking Dominion, but if
it's the same idea. Except Dominion, you don't really have a boss, right?
No,
There's not a combat. It's all just gathering victory points.
Yeah, it's like capitalism meets imperialism, colonialism, one of them.
Imperialism.
We could ask Lindsay. Yeah, okay. Imperialism.
So we've been doing that off and on, and then we always try to have LAN parties and play Stardew Valley, but I can't play Stardew Valley anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. And then, the biggest game has just been keeping the house clean and keeping my son fed. So that's always tricky.
Yes, you should set up a reward system.
I mean, he's growing, so that's good enough reward.
There you go. Oh, very fun.
But yeah, it's been a good year off. It feels like I wish I had been getting more dissertation work done, but.
Well, yeah. So how much time? How long have we been recording so far? Because.
Well, we've been in the video for 40 minutes, but we've probably had maybe 20, 15 of us actually podcasting.
Okay, because I did want to see if we could, turn this into a Toben episode. Maybe.
No, not right now. I don't have enough to talk about because I don't have any findings. I just have stuff that I find interesting.
I mean, not necessarily about your PhD, but you could talk about comps. I'm interested to know how virtual comps worked, and also we have a lot of courses. This is so funny because I always tell you about how other researchers have a hard time thinking that they have enough to talk about for themselves. And then you just did the same.
Well, yeah, because I literally don't have anything to talk about.
For your dissertation?
No, not for my dissertation.
Yeah. Well.
Do you want to talk about comps? We can talk about comps.
Yeah, I want to talk about your comps, and I want to talk about the courses.
Okay. What about comps do you want to
know? This was your B list?
No, this is primaries. Hold on, there's a bug down here. I need to kill it.
Pause for bug.
Pause for bug killing. Okay, it's dead.
Are you going to dispose of it?
No, it's not going anywhere.
Wow. This reminds me of a funny story. So my parents just moved into a new house during COVID, so that was an ordeal. And they don't have light switches really anymore. There's sensors. I mean, you can press them.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you walk by, and my dad was telling me that a spider turned on their light while they were sleeping because it crawled across the sensor.
Ugh, the future freaks me out.
Yeah, I know. That's why I stay here. I don't go okay, yeah. So comps, primaries. What does primary mean for the people who don't know? And that may or may not include myself right now because it's still the morning.
Sure. So I don't know what other universities do. Maybe this is the way that everybody does it. But at U Waterloo, you do 2 rounds, well, 2.5 rounds of exams. So you do your secondary research area. So it's going to be the sub focus. So when I initially pitched my dissertation, I was going to do this grand scheme of I'm looking at video games, movies, and comics, and how they all intersect in a way that enables this kind of hero's journey through an interactivity in video games.
Mm.
And so I did my secondary in American literature because that's as close as we could get to any kind of comic studies in what U Waterloo was offering. So then your primary field of research is kind of the big theory or criticisms that you look at to form a foundation for your dissertation research. So mine was new media, so I could look at things like game studies, adaptation theory, a lot of just new media stuff. So lots about internet and hypertext and virtual reality and head-mounted displays and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I was looking primarily at how do these new media artifacts basically allow for things like immersion, interactivity, and how do those two practices participate in this magic circle kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So it was good, but then when I got to my proposal defense, so that's the kind of 0.5 that I would say is you have 2 written exams, your secondary and primary, and then you have your proposal defense where you sit down with your committee and they ask you a bunch of questions, basically saying or asking like, have you thought about this angle for your proposal? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So that was a good and traumatizing experience because I really was like, this is not going to work well. And what it revealed to me was that I'm biting off more than I could chew, and that these things that I thought were interconnected aren't necessarily interconnected. Like I would either have to force it really hard or I'd have to do way more research and way more work than what they want to see in a dissertation. So afterwards, I did pass all of them, which is nice. But afterwards, I sat down and I started making, literally, I remember doing this. I was sitting on the couch and I made mind maps. So a bunch of words, things that I found were interesting. So like immersion, okay, circle that. World building, circle that. Role-playing games, circle that. And I'd keep building off of that kind of stuff. And I came to the realization that I don't want to talk about movies and comics and stuff, despite how much I love comics and what they do. I think what I really want to look at is role-playing games and what they do. And so I shifted out of that kind of stuff and I said, okay, enough of this adaptation theory stuff, enough of comics and blah, blah, blah. I really just want to dig into the mechanics that allow for role-playing games to bring human players into a space, allow them a digital space, allow them to explore that space, and then look at the interaction of the magic circle between specifically a computer and a human, right? Despite how much we play D&D and how interesting the magic circle is when you're with a human, there's not too much research done about what happens with the computer because the computer is set, right? Like it's Bogo's talking about procedural rhetoric. There's a limit of what developers and programmers put in, and players play through all of it, and then you wait for the sequel. So that kind of stuff is where I'm at now with my research. And comps was helpful in seeing that because there's a lot of stuff about hypertextuality. And there was one that I read that was really interesting about how these people in the early days of the internet, before comics or web comics were a thing, they would build like hypertext comics. So there would be a panel, and then there would be a node, and it would diverge, and you'd have 3 panels. And so depending on where you went, the story would change because you're kind of like choosing your own adventure as they all go through. And so that kind of stuff got me thinking about choice and about player agency and programmers kind of assuming or guessing at where players want to go and what they want to do. And then the more that I play RPGs, the more I realize that character creation systems are really fascinating because developers have to balance so much. Otherwise, you just get these completely godlike builds of characters that can go through and defeat anything, and there's no challenge in games. So it's like, do players want to be challenged, or they just want a space where they can go and kill stuff and level up and feel powerful, because maybe that's not something they get in the real life. So there's a bunch of stuff back and forth there that is coming to fruition, but yeah, it's hard to find a balance between actually reading about it and just wanting to play forever. So.
Classic. Wow, there's a lot there. I, first of all, am very pleased that the answer is very true core Toben.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like ever since I met you, right, we have bonded over role-playing games.
Yeah.
That has been the steady thing. I mean, you know, you've introduced me to comics as well, but it always has felt like, you know, strip everything away and it's role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. Are you thinking about studying the player experience, or is it more like design and interaction with experience?
So I'm not sure where it's going to take me at this level or where I'm at now. I think what I want to focus more on is the ludology, is just this is what the mechanics offer players. Because I don't know if I want to start, sending out surveys and talking to people about, if you
That's
played this
fair.
game and you had this build, what was your experience like? I think I can do a lot of that myself. So the main thesis, at least what I'm starting with, and we'll see how the other chapters come together, is kind of this binary, or I guess, between an optimal build and a viable build.
Yeah.
So think about when you play D&D, you could roll a character and you could have whatever stats possible. And the game, for the most part, will allow you to play regardless of whether you have, 20 in strength or a 11 intelligence if you're a spellcaster. The game is balanced in a way that either of those can make it through the game because of how everything else kind of equals out, right? If you have a really powerful tank and you're something else, things will kind of shift down. So that kind of stuff I think is really interesting, right? There's some games that I've played where unless you make the exact perfect selection of skills.
Well, that's even been true occasionally for some one-shots.
Yeah.
So even though you're playing within the established, you'll have this one-shot come along, and some players are able to just do really well, and while other players coast. I think that actually happened. I was DMing one for a few friends, and my partner rolled really, really well. So the entire game was just him, and everybody else was kind of trailing behind him. But it had to do with the one shot.
Yeah, and so that's really interesting, especially in D&D when it's all humans, because I think it's Jesper Jewell who talks about how if you have like a two-player game, right? So say you are playing Smash Brothers with somebody from the GI, and they know that you're not really that good. I believe it was Jesper Jewell who said, in a situation like that, the player who is more skilled will self-handicap so that the enjoyment level is kind of shared. So in D&D, like, does that happen? Do characters who have really powerful melee characters or something like that, do they say, okay, well, I'm going to like stand up front and I'll take a lot of the hits, but I'm going to let you get some hits in too so that everybody has fun?
Yeah.
Or is it literally, I'm going to steal the show and I'm going to go in and solo it, and you guys can just kind of clean up?
Well, this is why I think that it's the one shot. It's because like you can do that, but if the one shot is designed, or I guess the campaign is designed in a way where you're only ever fighting other melee characters, people who play as melee, they'll do really well. But actually the way that you DM is you design varieties of scenarios within one session.
Yeah.
So, you'll have a puzzle, which I do really poorly at, and then you'll have enemies who, I don't know if there's a term for this, but there's a scenario where you have an enemy who's really strong, and then a scenario where you have multiple really annoying, but not so strong enemies. And then, you also throw in some magical elements where you have to fight using magic power, and then, Steph Paladin does really well.
Right.
So if you don't, like, yeah, I think this is how I'm wrapping my head around what you're saying is, like, the game has to anticipate the holistic experience.
That's right.
And it's really a complexity question, because there's all of the variables are more or less unknown until they come to be. So you have to anticipate sort of all of them.
That's right.
Put all of them together. Yeah, very, very cool stuff that you're going to be looking into.
Yeah, so that's why that stuff is interesting, is because you have games, so Divinity and Pillars, and I assume Baldur's Gate, as it continues development, will all do this, where it's a party-based game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Divinity, you get a party of 4. Pillars is a party of 6. Baldur's Gate, we're not sure exactly how many you'll get. I'm assuming 4, as that's kind of the typical D&D party size, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating is, so obviously the game is balanced to play with the max amount of party members, but there's achievements and stuff for beating the game solo or beating it on the hardest difficulty solo. So they also have to balance it so that if you're a one man or woman or elf or dwarf army, you're able to do that. So how are those mechanics all put together to be able
Mm-hmm.
to afford those kind of situations, right? So you can't,
Yeah.
and that's why the optimal versus viable thing is really interesting, is there's a lot of situations in both Divinity and Pillars where if you don't have a high enough like thievery or lockpicking skill, you're kind of screwed.
Okay,
So what is the workaround for that, right? So
yeah,
that's the kind of thing, is like, unless the player innately has the skills already there,
yeah.
where the kind of the back doors. And I think that's something that all games do very interestingly, but specifically RPGs, where you have, you know, dialogue or conversation checks and stuff that can open doors. You have skills that can open doors. I don't mean just like literal doors. I mean allow for those kind of branching paths and stuff to become possible. So, but go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm getting excited. I think you should, I mean, okay, far be it from me to tell you what a research methodology should be for you, but I think you should interview some game designers and get their take on
Yeah.
it. Because I wonder, like, how much they could even say about how this process works for them. Because, you know, like AC Atienza, who is the Games Institute's, you know, game designer person. Not really, but you know, they did Energize and they did Captain's Gambit. We've had them do design talks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind, AC is like, yes, this is the game design person that I always want to talk to. So when they were giving their design talk, talking about like all of the different pieces that had to go into Captain's Gambit, all of the considerations, a lot of that they knew top of mind, but most of it emerged from questions and prompts.
Yes.
Right? Asking them, why did you include this game element when everybody clearly hates it? And then they would say, well, it's necessary, and actually, without it, everything else falls apart, or whatever. So I don't know. I think it'd be really interesting to collect some ethnographical data,
Yeah.
ethnographical stories
I
from game
I
design.
want to. I have kind of a hit list, but basically I just have to find the questions still. Right.
Ooh,
I don't know what I need to ask yet. And that comes with, I just need to read more scholarship and to see where the gaps are.
yeah.
But I have two points I want to make about your previous conversation or comments. So the first one is, one of the reasons why I'm really excited for Baldur's Gate 3 is in their, so they would do Twitch streams and different things like that. And in one of them, the studio head said, "We're designing this game so that we are your DM." And I thought that was really interesting, because I think that's the first time where I've heard that phrase come out of a studio, where typically when people are doing postmortems or they're talking about, you know, how many story options are available, it's literally just, look at this huge number, you're never going to get through it. But by saying we want to be your DM, or we want this game to be your DM, there's a different kind of relationship there, which is kind of more flexible, rather than just, you know, here's 500 story options. By being your DM, it's not just 500, it's like there's a personalized feel, there's stuff that's meaningful, there's things that that can only happen based on the choices that you make based on your character, right? There's all that kind of stuff. So that is really interesting, and how they're trying to anticipate that kind of stuff. And then the second one about design elements, there's stuff in RPGs that continue to be there just that make absolutely no sense. So why in games do we have to continue worrying about things like durability in weapons and armor when everybody hates that stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what does it actually do? So there's
I do hate that stuff.
There's a postmortem. Oh, it's not a postmortem, I guess. It's just an interview. But the lead developer of Diablo 1 and 2 was talking to IGN, and the IGN interviewer asks, if you were to do this over again, or if you were to be in charge of the remaster or whatever, like, what would you get rid of or what would you add in? And the first thing he said was, I don't know why we ever gave players like a stamina meter. So you can run and the stamina meter goes down, and once it goes down, you have to walk. And one of the things that I hate in games these days is when your character just moves too slowly. Because I was like, if I have to go there, like, your world's not that beautiful that I have to walk. I'm not taking in anything. Just let me go fast, right? I don't have 3 hours to play anymore. I have like a half hour, right? So that kind of stuff. So why is durability a thing? Why is like the limitation of crafting a thing? Something that Pillars does really interesting is they make crafting actually really meaningful. So things like durability, stamina, right? So if you're keeping track of all these different kind of systems, does it actually make an RPG more meaningful? Does it are they intended to kind of heighten them in immersion, right? In real life, you wouldn't be able to run forever either. Your stamina meter would deplete, right? Is that kind of the thinking? Or is it literally just this kind of the phrase from Magic is limitations breed creativity? That's not the full quote. That's a bad paraphrase of it. But by putting in right constraints in these games, are we making players have to be more choosy? I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I think about now.
Yeah. Feel free at any point to use this podcast as an opportunity to get in touch with game designers and interview them, because that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I think that's what it has to be, is because I'm not finding a lot of what I want out of scholars. And I'll save you the rant about how game studies scholars and comic scholars, for the most part, I just find really annoying because they're not actually doing what they profess to do. Majority of the books that I've read about game studies have all been histories of games rather than actually analysis of the systems and stuff that they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I find the creatives, the people actually making the games, to be much more valuable resources than the people who are studying the games, because it's just continually like, oh, they did this and this and then this and then this, and here we are, rather than actually saying, here's the system, I'm going to analyze it for what it does. And again, it's probably just me looking in the wrong places, and I'm not that great of a researcher. But I'm hoping to correct that.
Well,
in my own work.
I think this is what I kind of meant before when I was talking about AC's design talk, about how it took other people asking them questions for them to really get at the strangeness of the design process.
Yeah.
So one of the questions was, maybe it was me. Let's pretend it was me.
Sure.
I asked about how they integrate feedback from players after a playtest.
Oh, great.
Because I'm thinking, like, do you have players play something and they go, wow, I really hate this stamina thing, and then you just go back to your desk and you take it away? And AC had this whole answer. I was expecting, like, oh, you want like at least 5 people to say, or you want half of people to say it over 3 or 4 play tests. But no, it was this whole thing about how to think about the way something performs in the system. Once you diagnose that there is a problem, like if enough people are noticing it, once you diagnose that that's the problem, you play through it again with it and try to not use it. And I don't know. I'm going to send you the design talk so you can see what they actually said. But the thing that really surprised me is a lot of game studios will be getting all of these complaints and they'll say, we hear you, we'll take it into consideration. And it feels dismissive, but it's not. It really is, we hear you, We're going to put this into our project pipeline, figure it out, have a team dedicated to it, and then in 5 or 6 months, we'll come up with an answer about whether or not we're going to tweak this thing or remove it.
Yeah, it's not an overnight situation.
Exactly. There's this, I wish I could remember what they said about like the backwards technique, where you play it a couple times with it and then without it and then with something different to replace it, and just see how all of the parts of the system work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of
stuff. Yeah,
that's one.
You do have to start thinking about it as a system. Oh, sorry. This
Sorry,
is me.
I know. We're getting too excited.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's why I'm really excited to get into Baldur's Gate 3. So to explain again, it's not out yet. I'm basically playing, or I will be playing kind of a beta. They call it early access. So it's not finished. It's kind of a very early version of, well, it is the earliest version of the game they're releasing. So what I'm interested in that is just seeing how they adapt 5th edition D&D into a digital space, is to see how they take feedback and tweak it to make it more playable. Because a lot of the stuff I'm reading nowadays is, a lot of people saying 5th edition rules aren't fun as a digital thing because digital games has to be fast and you have to feel powerful and you have to have very visual battles and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just curious in like what, from all of the times that we played D&D and had wonderful fun, by making it digital, what's going to be lost, what's going to be enhanced, what changes are they going to have to make sure that stuff stays consistent stuff. It's really interesting to see is when people complain about, why are we still dealing with durability? Are they going to get rid of it? Because there's no durability in 5th ed, if I can remember correctly, right? Are they going to introduce that just to have some, you got to find a repair hammer to repair this? Or is it going to be just, yes, your weapons do not break unless you crit fail, and then one of the options that a system behind the scenes is rolling is, your longsword breaks because you hit a really reinforced part of the orc's armor and now you don't have a longsword. Is it going to be that kind of situation? Like, there's just so much stuff there that we wait to see what happens.
I'm trying to think about how to phrase this because it might be a stupid question.
The only stupid questions are the one you ask yourself on the bus ride home.
Oh, yes. A motto we all live by. This D&D digital version, is there a world that you're navigating? Like, is there a visual aspect?
Yeah, so you're playing in the Forgotten Realms, or Faerun, which is like the canonical D&D world.
What is the art like?
It's beautiful. I was actually going to send you a bunch of stuff. I thought I did. Didn't I send you a picture of a tiefling? I didn't. Because I was going to be like, look, it's Poe's brother or something. Did I not do that?
Oh, I miss Poe.
I must have forgot to do that. But no, it's beautiful. So the same company that made Divinity Original Sin 2 is making this, and their art style is phenomenal. I'll send you some pictures after, and you can look through. They send out a newsletter with some images from the character creator, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Oh no, this could be very bad for me.
Yeah.
Remember luckily back at the beginning when I'm talking about avoiding games that could have me obsessed.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean is I don't have to worry about ever asking people to play D&D anymore and working on a schedule. I can just sit down and play by myself and not have to ever worry about it.
That's a disadvantage for me. Like,
yeah, I know.
I need the accountability to my time. But interesting. I'm very happy for you.
Thanks. It's fun to be actually doing something that feels manageable and achievable. The previous version of my dissertation was like, how am I ever going to get to where I want to go without having to do so much stuff? But this is very, like, I have the chapters. I know exactly what I'm looking at. I mean, obviously, for now, this is 1.0. And then the best part of all this is that I get to do some kind of creative research project at the end of it. So the thinking is taking some kind of campaign, short story, something like that, adapting it into a digital space using some kind of probably the creator tools of Divinity, but hopefully by that time Baldur's Gate 3 will have them available, because then it's just true 5th ed stuff. And then saying, so we could take like the Lighthouse dungeon that you guys did in in that, and I could build that whole space and have people go through it, and then have people play it and do an analysis of the magic circle and stuff. Like, there's just tons of stuff to look forward to.
genuinely, like, I'm curious about that because I want to see if anybody else does what I did. What does this do? Yeah. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I'm very excited. And I think that we should actually get a game designer on the podcast ASAP.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. You can just play with asking questions and see what comes up. And yeah.
All right. I'll put out some feelers.
Really? Cool.
Sure, why not? I don't have a problem with that.
Because I mean, I would have no idea about who to connect with first.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to play the game too, so that you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Good point.
Or watch a bunch of it, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, that's what I did with Horizon Zero Dawn in the end.
Yeah.
Actually, no, Spider-Man. One of them I just watched a lot of it.
Didn't you get somebody to play Horizon Dawn for you, but you watched Spider-Man?
I think I might have done that with I played a significant amount of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
But still, sorry, I should qualify. I played many hours of Horizon Zero Dawn, but did not make it very, very far. So, yeah.
Can I give you my, what would you call it? My sinful confession about those games?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like Spider-Man.
Oh.
And I was going to make that like the cornerstone of my dissertation beforehand. And I played it as a object text for my primary comps, and I hated it. Like every minute of it, I hated it. Because it's not a Spider-Man game. It's an adventure. It's a Assassin's Creed game in which you play Spider-Man.
Is it because of the combat?
No, it's because it's literally the systems and mechanics that have existed in every kind of game like that since Batman Arkham Asylum all the way through now. Like, you know, The Witcher has the same things. The Assassin's Creed games, starting with, I want to say probably Origins, but I haven't played any of them, so I don't know. Horizon had the same kind of systems. There's like all the AAA adventure action games are all, you have to do stealth sections, you have to investigate stuff. There's these mini games, you have to collect a bunch of unlockables. There's a whole bunch of suits. Mm-hmm. So there was stuff that I was really excited about, right? I love that I could use the Future Foundation suit. I love that I could do. That's about it. And then as I played it, I was like, I'm literally just playing Assassin's Creed in which I play Spider-Man and I'm in New York.
Game. Yeah. What would have made it more of a Spider-Man game?
This is probably going to get really people riled up, but I don't consider Spider-Man to be an investigator. He's a photographer, but I wouldn't call him he's not an investigative journalist. So that was probably my favorite part, is swinging through New York and taking photos of the landmarks. I did every single one of those because that was really cool. So none of this like investigative stuff. I don't want to have to trace electrical lines to see where the next breaker is that I have to flip. That kind of stuff is really annoying. I understand that you want to complete quests and kill people and level up, but there's this weirdness of like, if Spider-Man's already, he's in college, so he's been Spider-Man for at least 5 years. Why am I still learning how to grab the weapons out of people's hands with my webbing? Like, there was a disconnect there where my brain said, at this point in his career, he should know how to do this. How come this is the third or fourth skill that I unlock when I should be able to do this off the bat?
Interesting.
And then the other part was just, yeah, I had really big issues with the combat because it's just that Arkham Asylum hit. Oh, there's somebody going to hit me, so I'm going to counter. Obviously, they make it work a little bit more with your spider sense and stuff, but that didn't work. And then, as much as I loved the story when I was an observer, when I played the story, I just had no desire to continue. Because again, I was like, this is something we've seen over and over and over and over and over again.
Huh. I mean, if I was trying to debate you, I'd have a really hard time.
And there's people who love it. I have a friend who loves it, and that's great. Like, I want people to have to find video games like that they can really latch onto. But the more and more that I play video games, the more I realize, like, there's a whole swath of stuff out there that's just not for me. And it's specifically that kind of AAA model. And that was one of the things I was going to talk about in my in my comps was like as a adaptation standpoint, they did taking, here's the structure, the model of how these games work, and here's how we make it work within the kind of Spider-Man mythos or canon. From that standpoint, it's like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But as an actual Spider-Man game, I was like, nah, I'd rather play the Spider-Man 2 movie adaptation because that was way more interesting of a Spider-Man game, despite playing through the movie right over again, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I still haven't started Horizon Zero Dawn. I sat down opening cutscene, and I think my son was down here, and I was like, no, I'll just put on Frasier because that's more fun to watch with him. I didn't want to play the game.
Well, I mean, after you've said all of this, I don't know if you'll like Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, narratively, it's very good.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm excited about is the narrative and stuff.
And it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the combat is more interesting too. No offense to other games. You can take offense.
Yeah, they're just so slow. That's the other thing is I want games to be faster at getting me into the actual game, which is ironic because I spend so much time in character creation.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that we can end with this because this is my final thought about all this stuff. Is so in the postmortem of Diablo 1, David Brevik talks about how during the early, Super Nintendo era, there was a lot of those like hockey games, there's a lot of hockey games. And what you would do is essentially you'd plug in, you'd pick, are you playing a 1-player or 2-player match? Okay, I'm playing 1-player. What team do you want to be? Well, I want to be the Maple Leafs. Boom, you're in the game. Right? There's none of this like assign your points to your player. What height do you want them to be? Do they have a beard? It's literally I'm playing this team and here we go. And it would be in. And they took that system and put it into their games by saying, okay, we're going to start the game. Do you want to be the mage, the warrior, or the rogue? I'm going to be the rogue. Boom, you started the game. You're off and running. And that kind of stuff is what I want games to do more. And obviously indies do it really well. Is just, okay, here you go. And there you go. You're in. But by playing a AAA title, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to start this game, I need an hour and a half to get through the opening cutscene. It's going to be another probably hour before I get to a save point. And by that time, it's like 3 a.m. because I can't start playing until 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I want to add my preference on this too, while we're just asking for things. Sure. And then we can end. But okay, so what I loved about Spider-Man was similar to you, like flying around, webbing around, seeing the different parts of the city, and collecting backpacks. Like things with backpacks. Yeah, that was really cool. And the combat kind of got in my way. The cutscenes got in my way. And I think, I was playing it thinking, yeah, this is what you'd expect out of a AAA game. And I'm sure a lot of people really love this, and I'm the outlier. But I do want a game that just lets me fly around and have fun and explore the world and interact with characters. And I know that The Sims is out there, but The Sims is not what I'm talking about because you're still as a person. Yeah. I want the first person's perspective, and then I can fly or do things that I can't do in my regular life. I don't want to have to send my kids to school or design my house. I mean, maybe throw that in there, but like I want to fly and I want to hang out with some whales in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Interesting.
Like, give me a game that has no constraints. Just, yeah. Let me be Dr. Manhattan. Come on.
Without all the personal character flaws.
Well, let's see if I discover them for myself.
So in that game, would you want a narrative, or would it literally just be, here's the space, you can do whatever you want in it, and that's it?
I wouldn't. But my question, and then this is like probably too philosophical to address right now, but my question is, why wouldn't there be a narrative to that? It's just one that I construct.
Well, that's what I mean. Is would you step into that world and there's a little pop-up box that says, okay, hit this button to fly, or is it literally just, here's a space?
Yeah. Here's the space, but things are happening around me and it's all synchronous. So there could be a bunch of robbers robbing a bank and I could choose to engage, or I could walk by it and be like, not.
So very Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's boring, but I think that would be a cool experiment. They have these open world versions of uh, one of the um, like ancient Egypt from one of the games, one of the games, and you can just walk around and explore, and it's supposed to be a way to learn about the city in the ancient times, and I think that that's really, really cool. It's a really cool way to push the boundaries of what we think of as game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting.
We really should end this, but it's okay because we'll be doing this again in a couple days. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk about The Witcher.
Oh goodness, yeah. Buckle in. Yeah, I'm excited to have Pam just literally sink her teeth into all of these discussion topics and not be interrupted, unless be interrupted. Okay, I will see you in a few days.
All right, this was fun. Have fun. Have a good day.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody listening. I hope that you are staying safe and happy and healthy, and we will cross our fingers that we're seeing you soon.